Hello and welcome to Mystic Visions. This is a monthly tarot card reading for Pisces for the month of May. So welcome Pisces, and we're going to go ahead and get straight to your reading. Okay, so for my Pisces friends, we have the Wheel and the Page of Swords. The World, Six of Swords, Queen of Swords, Page of Cups, Two of Pentacles, Two of Wands, the Death card, and the Hermit. Okay, wow. Okay, so something of note in your reading here, only one card is in the upright, and that's the Wheel. Everything else is in the reversed. Typically indicates a little bit of a resistance in your life, so that can mean there's some frustration, there's some things not going quite the way that you want them to go, or there is a feeling of dissatisfaction, right? Now, for your current situation being the Wheel, what this means is that there's some natural ebbs and flows. There's some cycles that occur in life, and part of it is just natural. You know, sometimes there's good luck and bad luck, that type of thing. But it also is what you make of it a little bit. So I think that one of the big important factors that I'm seeing here is changing your outlook on things a little bit, or changing the way that you're perceiving what's going on. And instead of having an unreceptive or uninviting attitude toward what's happening, kind of figure out a way for you to maintain a more positive mentality about it, or even to look at how it can lead you to a better place in the future. Okay, so crossing you is the Page of Swords. And the Page of Swords, so pages represent, they're almost like childlike energy. They're figuring out the essence of their particular element, and in the case of swords, it's thought. So we see here a very academic, student-like young, bright girl who's she's new on the academic journey, but she's diving in, right? She's willing to learn. She's willing to figure things out, and this hasn't necessarily worked out too well for you. You may have approached this with a really good energy, with really good intentions, but for some reason it's been harder than you thought, or it hasn't worked the way that you thought it would. Maybe you went to school to become, or to get a good job, but when you got out of school, you found that there weren't a whole lot of good jobs available or in your field. Or maybe it's just not served you the way that you thought it would, right? Maybe it's made you a little bit unhappy to know about, the things going on in the world. And, you think knowledge is a good thing all the time, but, they don't tell you that when you know about horrible things going on, it's hard to be happy, right? So there's a little bit of a double-edged sword there. Knowledge, and that's why knowledge is represented by swords, because knowledge always comes with a cost. And that's kind of represented in the story of the Garden of Eden, right? The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's, in a way, you'd think, okay, well, why does it suck to know what the knowledge of good is? Well, the reason it does is because it also comes with the knowledge of evil. So you can't really know what good is until you know what evil is. And to know what evil is, it has to be incorporated in you and as a part of you at some point. And also, knowledge that you have about the world around you and everything. When you start judging what's going on in the world around you, you're, in a more esoteric sense, judging aspects that exist within yourself. And granted, maybe not to the same degree, the same manifestation, right? But there are subconscious congruities between what you see in the world around you and what's present in your own psyche. Okay, so what you have that you're moving away from is the World in the reverse. So the World, it's really the world's about completion of cycles and kind of like a reincarnation type thing where it's not the end when the cycle is complete, but you're moving on to a kind of a new thing or a new cycle or a new part of the cycle, new development. And in the reverse, it's like you're not quite ready to move on. But you're moving away from that. You're moving away from the feeling of not being ready to move on. And you're moving toward the Six of Swords, which is a difficult transition. But again, being in the reverse, you're resistant to going through that difficult transition. So it's like kind of like you're dragging your feet in where you're leaving and where you're going towards. So it's kind of just, you're feeling a little unhappy about this. And that's why I say you have to learn how to change your outlook on it, because there's a way of looking at every single situation in life as though it sucks. And there's also a way of looking at every single situation in life as though it's the greatest thing that ever happened to you. So what makes the difference? How do you determine if you're going to see something like it sucks or it's a good thing? And unfortunately, well, fortunately, really, it boils down to choice. How are you going to choose to see it? And you have to eventually, with maturity, you start to learn that the way that you choose to see things is going to be based on how do you want to affect things, or what direction you want to go. It's like you're throwing up your sails and you want to catch wind that's going a particular direction and not wind that's going the wrong direction, right? So that's what it's like. You have to be able to figure out how are you going to actively monitor your thoughts and your inclination toward different ideas, and use your ability to choose how you feel about things to propel you in a particular direction. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I feel the reality of it very well. I hope I'm conveying it in words as well as I feel it. Now, what we have for your foundation kind of represents what's the lesson that the universe is teaching you here, or what's in the subconscious. Why are you experiencing this? And it's the Queen of Swords in the reverse. So, the Queen of Swords is typically, she's an intellectual type. She's internalized a lot with her thinking. So she's more of a philosopher type, whereas the King can be a little bit more of a problem solver or a manipulator. She's a little bit more of like, figuring out things for her own benefit, or to get a grasp on reality around her, those types of things. But in the reverse here, what's happening is that you may be a little bit stuck in your own head sometimes. You may have this conceptual framework for the way the world is, and it's not serving you very well. And you're going to have to find a way of adopting a little bit more of a productive worldview, which at least empowers you to move in some particular favorable direction, rather than feeling like maybe the whole world is too big and it's out to get you, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's not a very productive thought, right? Even if it's true, even if it's absolutely true that everybody is plotting against you, how's that helping you to think that, right? So there's a better way of operating, which allows you to have more power and personal liberty than that. So this is what this is about. It's about kind of changing your conceptual paradigm, so that instead of thinking like everything is bad or everything is upside down, you can turn everything right side up and choose what you want to affect. Okay, so in your crowning thoughts, this is your conscious mind. This is what you've been thinking about. It's the Page of Cups. Now, in the upright, the Page of Cups typically represents somebody who's very optimistic. He's, the type of person who believes pigs can fly. He's a real young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed type of an energy, and he's ready to go. Now, in the reverse, it's a little bit of pessimism, right? It's resistant to that idea that things could be, or could work out for the best. And so this is what's on your mind. You have a little bit of a pessimistic attitude about things. You have a little bit of a feeling like it can't be fixed, it can't be better, it can't work out ideally, and it's a little nitty gritty, right? So this is what that this is exactly what the situation is trying to get you to change, is this mindset that you're having to deal with, because it's not helping you to feel that way. It's not good for you to feel that way. There's no reason to. It's not true, because the truth is somewhat relative, right? So you, like I said, you can choose to see things that way, but you can also choose to see things another way. And all kinds of people do, right? They actively choose, and you can call it, willful ignorance if you want to get really pessimistic. But the question is, would you rather be willfully ignorant and happy, or would you rather know things that keep you absolutely miserable? And it's a good question. I'm not trying to lead that question and tell you there's a right answer to it. It's a question that's worth asking yourself, though. It's a question that's worth considering. To what degree does trying to figure everything out, or creating some model of how the world works, to what degree does that empower you to do something about it, or to achieve some set of goals? And to what degree does it just plunge you into depression and anxiety, right? Because that's not helping anybody. That's not helping you. So there's ways to go about it. I used to oftentimes think about people like in North Korea or places like that, where we have very little information to know what those people are going through, but the way that it's presented is that like pretty much everybody's at gunpoint all the time, and they are very nervous, and authorities will basically kill you at the drop of a hat for anything. So I used to think about, well, if that's the reality, God, who could live under that? Like I couldn't do it. I don't think I could, right? But some of these people have found out that within the realm of possibilities, or the realm of options that they have presented to them, there is a sort of ideal way to go about it. And so a great deal of those people live in that environment with some semblance of dignity, which is really impressive. And I would really love to meet and talk to those people at some point, if relations between our countries are better, to kind of know what's in their mind, or how do they feel about that. And I think it's naive to just chalk it up to like a sheep mentality, right? Or just, looking out for yourself. Everybody does this to a certain degree. Everybody has to conform to certain standards. It doesn't matter how free your society is or how much liberty you have. There are always going to be some standards that you have to conform to. So the way that you accept and work within those standards or limits is something that I find pretty interesting. And the lesson for you, I mean, this may be something that you find interesting too, based on the reading here, but the lesson for you is that you have to find a way to navigate those constraints with dignity as well. So your advice is those Two of Pentacles in the reverse. And this is about balancing work and life, enjoyment and hardship. So this is saying that like you may have a tendency to have these things out of balance a little bit, to where you feel like it's all work and no play, or all play and no work. Kind of feels like it's more of all work and no play, the way that these other cards are coming up. But it could be the other way around, because this is a dual meaning card, right? But the advice for you here is that you have to be able to have a balance of these things. So perhaps you're somebody who cares very much about some sort of a social justice issue. I don't know. I don't want to put too specific of a name on this because people can get triggered, right? But there's some social justice issue, some equality type of an issue, we'll say, that you're very passionate about, that you get very worked up about. And you get so worked up about it that you don't feel, here's one, let's say as a white person, that I'm aware of white privilege or something like that. And so I'm so guilty about it that I never really am able to enjoy myself or have any positive experiences, because there's always that nagging guilt in the back of my head that other people are not able to enjoy these things or don't have the privilege or the opportunity that I have to enjoy these things. Okay. So on the one hand, it's good to have that realization. On the other hand, it's incredibly harmful to never not have that realization, to never be able to escape from the realities of inequality, right? And to enjoy yourself is a one-way ticket to a mental breakdown and a really horrible life. So you have to be able to find a balance between these things where it's not just the aggressive and working and striving part of life, but it's also about letting go of all that and resting, right? I mean, there's not a living thing on this planet that can survive. Well, I'm probably speaking a little too broadly, but almost every living thing on this planet needs to sleep in order to survive. It has to literally let go of its consciousness to be able to function in a healthy type of a way. And as humans, we've kind of come to a point where we think sleep is enough, but it's not enough. You have to also be able to let go of consciousness while you're still awake, right? That's called meditation. That's called being able to let go of all your worries and all your cares and just sort of breathe and chill and relax, but without being totally unconscious or asleep, which is rest for your body. Your mind needs rest as well. So there has to be this sort of balance. And you're going to be, and the irony of it is, if you can't let go of the things that you care about at all, ever, then you're going to be completely ineffective at doing anything about them. So you have to be able to recharge, to be able to have that strength and the mental fortitude and intelligence to be able to solve problems. Because otherwise, if you care about it all the time, you'll just never be any good at doing anything about it. And you'll feel helpless. You'll feel like you don't have any power to control the situation. Because in reality, you don't, because you don't have any energy. So that's the way that works. Okay, so in your environment, you have the Two of Wands in the upright, or in the upside down, reversed. And the Two of Wands is about, well, so first of all, this is your environment. So this is the energy that surrounds you. It could be an individual or a group of people or the society in general, but this is the environment, right? Not you. This is a lot of, so the Two of Wands represents like planning, right? Or figuring things out in the long term, not really necessarily putting action into it, but it's a form of action to plan, right? It's a form of action to figure out what you care about and what you want to do and all this. And in your environment, there is a sort of resistance to this. There's a resistance to figuring out the way that things ought to be done. So there could be a lot of complaining. There could be a lot of people who are trying to convince you very much to care about certain things, but they don't have a plan for how to fix it. They're just kind of complaining about it, right? And so that's an exhausting place to be in, especially if you're an empathetic person, because you very much want to care about what other people are going through. But if they don't have any realistic suggestion for what you should do or how you should help it, then you're kind of in a lose-lose situation where you're just kind of feeling bad for no real reason and it's not getting anywhere. So be careful what energies you let rub off on you or how you allow other people to, virtue signal or tell you how to feel or how to act. And again, all of these things have their place. All of these things are good to a degree. But what we're seeing here is a little bit of an excess where it's hurting you to feel these way. And that everything has excess. The healthiest thing in the world can be overdone. And so you have to be careful about that. Okay, so what you are fearing or what you're avoiding or your fears card in general is this Death card in the reverse. So you know, the death card represents a transition or a new life or whatnot. But in the reverse, it's kind of like you're rejecting that. You're not willing to go down that road of rebirth or of letting a previous version of you die. You're clinging to certain thoughts or ideas or paradigms, and that is, you know, you might view it as noble, but what it is it's inflexible and it's not open to new information or for new things to come through. I kind of just noticed, and I never really had seen it before, that this part right here very much looks like a fishtail. And to me, that's conjuring up feelings of being open with natural cycles and going with the flow and allowing things to be what they are. Something that's very important for you. You have to be able to let go of ideas about yourself, you know, who you are. Think about it. You know, you might think, well, I'm a good person. I'm a caring person. Okay, well, that's a wonderful thought, and it's good to think that. But it's just a thought. That's all it is. It's just a thought. It doesn't mean that you actually are caring. It doesn't mean that you actually are a good person. And at the same time, you might think that you are all about, you know, social justice and doing that kind of thing. It doesn't mean that you actually are. So if you're too clingy to the certain ideas about who you are and who you want to be and this kind of thing, you are, in a way, holding back growth of allowing yourself to become some other person or more of the person who you want to be. So a lot of people are very much getting in the way of their own growth because they strive to have like all white and no black, or they refuse to recognize their whole imperfect nature, right? Like, you know, I'm sitting here giving people advice and tarot readings and things like that. But sometimes I definitely need advice myself, and I seek advice myself all the time. And I have to recognize that I don't know everything, or I'm not really learning anything new, and all I can do is really say the same things over and over again. So to be able to incorporate new knowledge, new wisdom, and to help people grow and develop, I have to be able to grow and develop myself, right? So that's what this is telling you, is that you've got to be in a place where you don't just know how everything should be, but you're open to new suggestions and you're listening to other people, even people from across the aisle, from wherever you sit ideologically or politically or whatnot. And you have to be able to collaborate. Now, what you have for your overall message is this Hermit in the reverse. Typically indicates feelings of loneliness or being unable to relate with others. And I had another reading where I said this, and I actually left a status on Facebook for some reason earlier this morning, and it seems very applicable to this card, where if you want somebody to talk to, make yourself someone to talk to, right? So there's a little bit of wordplay going on there, but what it really means is that you can't just be any type of person and expect other people to want to interact with you or to talk to you. Communication is a two-way street. Friendship is a two-way street. So you know, I know when I was younger, I used to imagine that, oh, there's like 8 billion people on the planet, so I can be any person I want to, and somebody out there will want to be around me or will want to be friends. And kind of wasn't true, right? Because I was in some ways I was like trying to be the best person I could possibly be, but in other ways I was kind of awful. I was kind of not cool to be around. And so I had to take a hard look at myself and say, well, shoot, I mean, it feels bad. It feels bad that nobody really likes this version of me. But at the same time, I wouldn't like this version of me because it's kind of unpleasant. You know, I was feeling a little negative and cynical about things. And I started to say, well, who the hell would want to be around somebody who's just constantly cynical about everything, who just thinks that the world is always falling, everything's going to crap, a sort of nihilistic attitude? Who would want to be around that? really. I mean, only other miserable people. So the only people who I was really able to interact with were people who brought me down even more. And I liked people who had a positive attitude, but those people who had positive attitudes, they didn't look at the world that way, and they didn't want to look at the world that way. So they weren't interested in what I had to say. So again, if you want somebody to talk to, make yourself someone to talk to. Make yourself someone who others want to interact with and who brings something to the table. It's all about what you bring to the table. Okay? And that's about it for you for today. Pretty good reading. Please let me know in the comments what you thought about it. And as usual, give me a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. And I'll see you guys next month for your next monthly reading. Thank you.